Are you ready to stop the self-sabotage and create the life you desire? Well, in order for that to happen, you need to break free from the bad beliefs that are holding your success hostage. You need to optimize the stress by turning it into extra energy for success. And those hurtful habits? Well, we need to give that pain a purpose for progress. Welcome to Stop the Self-Sabotage and Create the Life You Desire podcast.
So my question for you is this: why do you need to make success so hard? What symbolism are you using in your mind that actually makes it more of a challenge for you to achieve what it is that you want? Well, that's the reason why I have invited two other CHs with me today, Angie and John, because we want to share tips, tools, and techniques with you that is going to make it easy for you to fall into success. Get it? You know, it's September. Fall. All right. Yeah, there we go. So we're going to start right away with Angie. Angie, what is it that you want the audience to know right now?
One tip, tool, or technique. What I was thinking about was that we can use hypnosis to begin to quiet the voices of our saboteurs. You know, the part of us that tries to tell us lies of that we're not capable, we're not lovable, we're not good enough. And we can use hypnosis, self-hypnosis, or regular hypnosis with a hypnotherapist to turn up the volume of our higher self, our sage. And that just has, I think that would affect everything. I mean, from all of our relationships in our life. So turning up the volume of our higher self voice and turning down the volume of our various saboteurs. Like my top one is controller. And yeah, so that's my tip.
Okay, so we're going to be getting into that a little bit more then, as far as what can we do to turn up what we want to hear that's going to be helpful, and what do we want to turn down that's going to hurt us. Okay, great. John, what do you want the audience to know?
Thank you, Dawn. I appreciate that. You know, it's one of those things where I want people to know that there is no shame in any kind of challenge. You know, I'm committed to peak performance in all areas of my life. So physical, mental, spiritual, you name it. And so it's so interesting to work with people and really address challenges as opportunities for transformation. You know, we all may know the difference between change and transformation. You know, we change our clothes, but when we go from shorts, you know, to a suit, there truly has been a transformation. And for me, as someone who's worked in fragrance and scent modalities for a very long time, you know, Angie, when I look at your last name, it's so interesting to me because Mon Ko. So ko is the Japanese word for incense, and fragrance is our repressed sense. And in the incense tradition, which is something that I've taught for over 30 years, is that there's a cup called a mon koro, which is the listening vessel. And you might think, well, wait, we're smelling, not listening. Well, when you're listening to fragrances that go directly, you know, to our primal brain, it's an ability to literally lighten up. We've all had that experience when we smell something that smells amazing. You're like, oh my gosh, that smells so great, right? So when you're talking about hypnosis and you're talking about the ability to use language to tap into both the conscious and the subconscious and bring those two things together and really start to create, there's a Japanese term called shikaku, which means eye of the hurricane. Most people live in chaos, but if we're able to move to that center calm, then we can have that control that we're all wanting to really be the most amazing person that we can be. So Dawn, thanks for that question.
All right. So we're looking at then where you're going to be sharing, and we're going to get more into being in control through those challenges instead of the shame that could hold us back from success.
Absolutely.
All right. And then, as I started with the question, I want our audience to keep in mind whoever controls the questions controls the emotions. Whoever controls the emotions controls the outcome of the conversation. So there is a part of you right now that is controlling the questions you ask yourself, and it's not your everyday awareness. It is the pain of your past. So you're asking questions in such a way that is actually reinforcing the repetition, the repeating of the past instead of being able to move into progress. And so all of us want you to be able to consciously choose better questions. So if you say, oh my gosh, why does this always happen to me? Your subconscious is going to answer back, because you're a freaking idiot. That's why, because that's what it's been programmed with. Then that's where the voices come in of the saboteur with Angie, and the challenges equal control, or the shame equals the lack of success with John. So just as they're sharing more of who they are and how they want to help you, start asking yourself what are better questions you can ask in this area that are going to lead you to the results you really want to experience instead of more of the patterns of your past. Okay, so Angie, let's talk about voices of the saboteur. John, you and I are going to jump in. If you got a question for Angie as she's sharing, please ask it or jump in with a tip, tool, or technique. We talk over each other here. Okay, this is a conversation. So Angie, what do you do utilizing hypnosis to get them to turn down the volume on what's BS, which is belief systems, and then turn up what they need to hear in order to move forward? How do you use hypnosis for that?
By doing parts therapy scripts, talking to the inner child, for example, or whatever part that I believe is creating the chaos in their life. Have a conversation and ask when they get in that state of hypnosis, to ask them questions. You were mentioning questions that will help me to determine, and help them to determine, what part is in control right now. And so once we isolate that, have conversations with that part to say, what do you need? What can I give you right now that you're not getting currently? And just like if you were having a conversation with anybody, just ask probing questions to the part within them that is sabotaging them.
Why would it be a child sabotaging them? Can you explain a little bit about parts therapy?
Well, when I said inner child, maybe that's a blanket statement, but a lot of our beliefs and our thoughts are formed by the time we're 8 years old. And so a lot of those belief systems are the BS dictate our current reality and our actions, our habits. And so that's why I said inner child, because it's usually a childish behavior. Like, yeah. Oh my gosh, Dawn. Like, I mean, I'll be the first to claim, probably every day I have a part of my childish part comes out to interact with my husband. I mean, he has a way of bringing that part out, or whatever. I'm not blaming him for that, but yeah. So where I feel childish.
Well, and you just touched on something, because we can have two aspects to that younger us. We can have the immaturity, but then we also have the youthfulness.
Right. The playful, the youthful. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. There's wisdom to be gleaned from that, as well. Yeah.
And energy. Yeah. So we want to be youthful, because we don't want to age before our time. We want to be youthful. We just don't necessarily want to be immature when that aspect comes out.
Right. The tantrum side.
Yes. Okay. And I have found in tantrums, they can go in two categories. You tell me what you would add to this. I see the itty bitty shitty committee or the ivory tower tear it all down committee. So the itty bitty shitty committee, it can be the part of us that says, who do you think you are? You're not good enough. But then the ivory tower tear it all down is the part where there is a sense of entitlement that we shouldn't have to work so hard, where it should be easier. So both of them are immature with their voices and won't get us to where we want to be. But that's the two categories I have found on immaturity. What have you found?
I mean, I don't know that I would call them the exact same thing you did, but definitely the entitlement part is a big one. Because there's entitlement and there's worthiness, and so entitlement's the immature side of it, of thinking, well, I deserve all of this and I shouldn't have to work that hard. And well, there's various parts, like there's a victim part. You're asking about different parts.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big player, the controlling part that has to have the hands-on control of everyone and everything. And I used to be a controller in a past lifetime, in this lifetime. And so that's probably my number one saboteur, is that controller part, which came about because I had such chaos in my childhood. So I was trying to control things. And then the victim part, just this part, I believe, if I had to guess, came about when I was a young girl, and my aunt Elaine died when I was 6 years old. And she was 16 and she was 10 years older. We were born on September 23rd, same day. And I think I felt victimized by that whole situation, starting from a very young age. And so, it's perpetuated in some ways. And so there's a hyper rational part, that just, I overthink things. And yeah, I mean, I could go on and on, all these avoider part, all of these things.
Mm-hmm. And so you were saying that you use hypnosis then to tap into that aspect of your client and see what it is that they need.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do you do with that?
And then, I mean, it's just like, the way I think about it is, if there's something that we would logically do when we're coming from our higher self, we make a choice from our higher self brain, and we know what that is consciously, but we're not doing that, then in hypnosis, we're trying to gain cooperation from the parts of us that are being little menaces, in some ways.
Bitch. She's just being a bitch.
Uncooperative and disruptive. And so we're trying to gain cooperation from that part and give them something else to do, give them another job, give them another, like a replacement behavior, because we can turn up the sage or the higher self voice, I believe, through hypnosis, through practicing it regularly, or yeah.
So John, jump in.
I was just going to say, Angie, you said two things that really struck a chord with me, and I'll kind of walk you through the thought patterns I was having around that. So when you talked about conversations, for me, conversations are transportations, meaning that when we travel through life, right, there is a myriad of ways that we can get from point A to point B, right? There are, if we only have a car, there's a myriad of ways that we can get to the goal, right? And then if we have access, let's say we're a pilot, or let's say that we have some other kind of, transportation modality, is that through conversations, if we're looking at conversations as transportations, then what's the best way to get us there? Is it a car, little by little? Maybe I want to sightsee, but no, maybe I want to take the Concorde and I want to get, to that goal very quickly. So I love that you brought up conversations, because for me, when I'm working with clients and I'm giving talks or whomever I'm working with, whether it's executives or, just the kind of, normal everyday person, it's like, what is the transportation that we need to take to realize those goals? So I love that you brought that up. The second thing that you brought up was tantrums. Okay. So tantrums is a lot like the word tantra. Okay. So with So when we look at Tantra, for example, things like mantras, which obviously, is using the voice. Now you might say, well, isn't that just like Om and stuff like that? Well, it could also be that when you're like the self-speak that we have, whether we're using it through language for the conscious or whether we're using the symbolisms for the subconscious, is that how this all connects. The Tantra connects to meditation, it connects to yoga, and I say that it also connects to hypnosis, because we're using the voice, we're using language to create a context for everything to integrate together. So Angie, just immediate feedback. I think what you were talking about was fantastic. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Yeah. Tantras, you're a word whiz.
Wordsmith.
Wordsmith. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Linguistics. Did you study that? Sorry.
Yeah, I've studied linguistics. I speak a couple of languages besides English. But I also was trained in, like I said, like before we started recording, other modalities. And for me, becoming a CH, was really an integration of much of my training, and having a background in government, education, technology, and all media, is that, I think number one, how I apply that to ourselves personally is that imagine a world where everything you do and everything you believe is integrated. You're so at home with that. It's in your DNA. You naturally become, performance driven. You're present. You're really in the moment. You're not up here. You're out here, and out here is what makes the difference with people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to take it down a whole thing because I could ask them other questions, Dawn, but you go ahead.
So Angie, what is the one thing from the voices of the saboteur that you want everyone to be able to take action on starting right now?
First of all, start to identify what are your saboteurs, and to do that, I would go in go someplace quiet. And because I think that a lot of times we go at such a fast pace that we're not slowing down to really know ourselves and to really understand what's going on for us. And so, like, if you go outside in nature and maybe sit with your feet on the grass or to ground yourself and close your eyes, put your hands over your heart. To me, closing your eyes, putting your hands over your heart is a great way to start to connect in with our various parts. And so identify when you got to get grounded first. You got to calm down, get into the body and get grounded, I say. And there's different ways you can do that, but whatever you desire for that, whatever you like. If you like nature, go out in nature, but slow down. And then once you do that, have a piece of paper nearby and start asking yourself questions, like you said, on the quality of our questions determines really the quality of our life, because it controls our emotions and outcomes and all that. And so if we go someplace quiet and just start asking, what is it that I want to achieve? We could start out with that. What do I really want in my life? And then from there, see what comes up, jot it down. What part of me is standing in the way of me going for that? And then write that down. I mean, just a 15-minute, 20-minute exercise like this can really bring up a lot of, I think, wisdom and awareness for us. Mm-hmm. And then we could use that, go to a hypnotist, go to do our own self-hypnosis to start to tune into that part and then start to transform it by saying, okay, this doesn't work so well for us anymore. It's really hurting all of us. See ourselves as one unit. And I'd rather do this, and start to gain buy-in that way.
Yes. Gaining the buy-in. Okay. So thank you, Angie.
You're welcome.
John, you talked, you shared. No shame in challenges. Yep. Challenges can actually equal control. So what do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is that oftentimes, unless trained otherwise, and I really want to emphasize unless trained otherwise, we will oftentimes keep our challenges to ourselves. We somehow think that we're the only person that's experiencing the things that we're experiencing. Even if you just look at the benefit of hypnosis at a top level, it's the ability for us to communicate and to quote unquote, get things out, right? To reduce our pain, to expand our pleasure through conversation, through transportation, as we chatted about a moment ago. It really is about, if you start to train yourself to communicate your challenges as soon as they come up, then that reduces the amount of time that you are suffering with that, because there's a lack of action that's taking place. So when we look at, for example, the EKG meter, right? If we're up, we're down, 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 we're up, as we're moving across. Well, that's life for us. We're up, we're down, we're up, we're down. If I do this, what does that mean?
Death.
Yeah,
It's flat line.
in
Yeah.
many ways. And so many people are like, I just want everything to be calm. I want everything to be, no, that is not life. So it's like, okay, if we're going to have breakthroughs. So a lot of the work that I do around peak performance, are for people that are committed to growth. They're committed to really getting over their obstacles very, very quickly. So the game that I play is, when we have that peak, when there is that breakdown, that opposite of that, because the universe is always operating, on two sides. What's the speed at which that we can bounce back from that, so that we are really working at a high level, a high frequency, to use, a scientific term, which also relates to metaphysics. But, what is the frequency? So if we look at challenges lower our frequency. And so by literally tuning in, by having a conversation for those particular challenges, then we start to move very quickly. Now, here's the deal. If someone is going to work with me or us, I'm going to include all of us in this because we all have similar experiences. If people are unwilling to take those actions or have those kinds of conversations, then guess what? We can do nothing for them. I can do nothing for them. Right? So it's the ability to really say, I trust you, Dawn. I trust you, Angie. I trust you, John, to really be a space where I can peak in everything that I'm working on, understanding that what follows the peak is the downfall, but then we're back up. And so we're back to living this amazing life where we've got a strong heartbeat and we're doing the things in life. Does that make sense?
It does. So when you say train someone to communicate, we've all communicated our suffering with others and it hasn't made a difference.
Yeah.
How is it that we're using the space? You just talked about us creating a space for them. How are you using a space for them to communicate that actually allows them to bounce back faster from when they go from the peak to the pit? They want to get back up to the peak. How are you using hypnosis and that communication so it goes faster?
Yeah. So it begins with understanding that, I'm for you and I get you, and I'm creating that space of that true, comfortability and also confidentiality to say, look, I'm a committed listener for you. And so let's take the things that come up first. So when we're transporting ourselves from where we are to where we want to be, we can do this in steps. If the first thought is to work with a particular issue, don't put that thought down in a way where it's something we deal with a couple of weeks from now. Let's deal with the first thing. It might be that, I'm really mad at my mom. Well, why are you mad at your mom? Like, where did that start? And as we start to uncollapse that, we may discover something different. So I'll just tell you a very quick story about, I grew up with a father who was not what I would call loving. He wasn't what I would call the Hollywood dad, where it's like, let's go outside, son, and play ball. No, my dad was not that way. My dad was, I was in the military for 25 years. This is happy, that kind of thing. And so here I was as this expressive kid, and I was not getting what I saw in media. I wasn't getting that kind of dad. And so for many, many years, I made him wrong that he didn't love me the way I thought I should be loved. And then I had a transformation. I had that peak moment where I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, my dad does love me. He gave me money. He, would take me to movies. He bought me go-karts. He, gave me flying lessons to learn how to fly airplanes. The capability that my dad had to love me was through money and through physical things. When I realized that that's how he loved me, and I looked at how much money he had, given over to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, he did love me. He did love me. And that changed my world in such a way where, I was really able to, by the time that he passed, we had such a strong relationship, and our ability to really start to identify those blocks improves the quality of our relationships with everyone. And at the end of the day, all we want to do is be loved and appreciated for just who we are, nothing more, nothing less. And hypnosis starts, that first conversation, that path to wholeness is what I'm committed to.
And you just said something very important. We can experience what we value in life two different ways. One is performance-based. Dad didn't perform the way I thought he should. Mm-hmm. And then the other one is agreement-based, to where it may not have been in the way I needed it, but you were still bringing your brilliance. And I need the maturity and the wisdom to understand that other person was bringing their brilliance. I just needed it offered in a different way. And I now need to give it to myself. So to go back to what you said, Angie, as far as that inner saboteur is typically a younger version of us who didn't get their needs met in a healthy way. And then we then strive so hard, we become so performance-based, and we can never perform consistently. Mm-hmm. We have to take breaks. And so constantly trying to earn the life that we want to have is absolutely exhausting. To where if we can do what John just said, which is, there needs to be performance, there needs to be action, but there also needs to be agreement that this is what we value. Agreement that this is the best parts of them, this is the best parts of me. Where does it overlap? And let's stand in that sweet spot. Because if we're too agreement based, then we're going to say yes to everything that comes along, and the actions we take will be based on everybody else. If we're too performance, so agreement based, we're people pleasing.
Okay, I was wondering. Yeah,
we're people pleasing. Performance based, we're never good enough. So if we can find that sweet spot, just like John was saying, when he realized his father was bringing the best parts of him to the experience, then that transformed things, because then it wasn't so much Dad's not performing the way he needs to be. And then we're like, well, who needs to perform in his place? Can I get someone else to perform better? Do I need to perform better? And that's absolutely exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
But then if we're too much agreement, then we're not sure what we even value. We make it about everybody else, thinking that somebody will finally love us because we're everything that they wanted us to be. And then actually, no, they'll begin to resent us because that we don't know who we are. We're a chameleon and we only fit the experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Just when you first started talking about agreement, I wasn't quite sure exactly what you meant by that, but now I see. And I want to make a couple comments to John about what you said. I love the fact that you talked about creating a space, because And that's how I'm seeing it. It's just becoming really clear for me is that what I do for my clients is provide that space. And I call it a sacred space that is one of compassion. And compassion is not feeling sorry for, or pitying someone, but it's really seeing beyond their story, but also in a way that it's compassionate in that, like you said, I think, John, in the very beginning, it doesn't matter. There's no shame to what experience we're having or what situation we're going through, because we all are going through all of this. I mean, if as soon as I start to judge someone else for something, I have to step back and say, like, I'm the same. I am exactly the same. Like we're all going through this goo together, this metamorphosis, whatever you want to call it. So I loved you talked about the space and how we're creating that. And also, and how you really listen. You're a committed listener, and how you talk about trust, because if they don't trust us, they're not going to be able to go into a relaxed state of hypnosis and to be receptive to anything. And what I have found is that in order for them to be receptive and trusting of me or you, they have to have some self-trust as well. They have to be somewhat out of a trauma state, because if they're in a traumatized state, then they're not feeling safe. They're not feeling supported. And so my number one job is to start to help them to feel safe and supported, that sacred space. And then they can start to process whatever trauma or, childhood events they have going on. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love that resonated with you, because, Socrates said thousands and thousands of years ago that this is not his exact words, obviously I'm translating, but it's like, how we make a difference with others is that we recognize ourselves in others. And that's why it's important for us as CHs to really, begin the sharing so people can see, oh, okay, it's safe to share. So thank you for that feedback.
Yeah. And we have a very similar dad story too. And I just recently realized my dad loves me too. It was just this year, so many years of thinking he didn't.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's at this point that you may have created a resonance with somebody who's listening to this on the podcast, where they're like, oh my gosh, yes, I need to explore this further, because let's be honest, if we could have solved this on our own, we already would have. Someone else was there that created the wound. We need someone else there that can create the space for us to turn that wound into our wealth. So I'm going to do this a bit reverse this time. John, we're going to start with you. If they want to reach out and connect with you, how are they going to do that?
The easiest way is probably by email, but I'll give both email and phone. Email is shihanwellness@gmail.com, and I'll spell that SHIHAN wellness@gmail.com, shihanwellness@gmail.com. And then my phone number is 1-314-616-4091. That's 314-616-4091.
All right. Angie, how are they going to
Yes.
reach out to you?
Well, I have a website, and it's harmonyharbor.com. And that's HARMONY Harbor, HARBOR.com. And my email is Angie, ANGIE, @harmonyharbor.com. And my phone number is 1-314-422-6520. So that's 314-422-6520.
Okay. So now I'm going to throw this question out to the two of you. Why is it when we think about success, we think about something we have to climb up into? We have to go to a peak. We have to go to the top. Why do we not think of success as something we can fall into?
Never been asked that before. Uh,
What do you think?
I think my first thought was that our brain is so wired for negativity. I mean, a big part of it, 80% or whatever, that success seems hard, right? There's a belief system that it's got to be difficult. So climbing a mountain is not exactly easy. Whereas if we fall into something, the language around that is that it's easy, it's graceful, right? And so we don't believe that. A large part of us does not believe that success is easy, or even that it should be. You got to work hard, you got to prove your worth, that kind of thing. So that's the first thought that came to me.
Okay. What about you, John?
So every motivational poster from the 80s and the 90s is always that mountain, right?
Mhm.
You've got the hiker there and it talks about success and all that. So we have been trained to believe that we can't be successful unless we climb up that mountain. Well, here's the funny thing about that. If we ever looked at a gargantuan task that we're having to deal with, whether it's cleaning our house or whatever, is that we spend more time procrastinating over cleaning the house than actually doing it. Because once we do it, we're like, my gosh, it only took like 10 minutes, right? So actually seeing your success as something that you're already over, as a way to fall into that, or as a way to travel down into it, you have that power to change the way that you have been trained to see success. And you can do that. Like if for you, success is getting into a pool of water, you have to move down into that pool of water. The Japanese word for water is mizu. And there's this expression, mizu no kokoro, which means a mind like water, which is receptive. It nourishes. And so you can begin to, using hypnosis and other modalities, but primarily hypnosis, with a committed listener, a committed coach, a CH, you're able to change that for yourself. And I invite you to do it right now.
Yes, because the subconscious thinks in symbols, and that's very important for everyone who's listening to us right now. It's not language, it's symbols that will assist you getting to where you need to be quicker, faster, and easier. That's what we use in hypnosis is language that is symbolic in nature. And you right now are representing your challenge as being larger than you in your mind. So it's looming over you very large, and then you're very tiny. So that's learned in our culture, in our society. You think about going up grade levels from kindergarten up to 12th grade. And so, yes, you've got to earn your way up. And that is true as you're maturing. But once you actually get there, there's a difference between earning and revealing. And y'all at the spot now where revelation knowledge is more powerful than earning your next goal. Because you earn your next goal and something can come along and take it away from you. When you have revelation knowledge, you'll be able to recreate the achieving of that goal faster, quicker, and easier because you realize what parts of you were able to make it happen. But before you can achieve, you have to receive. You have to receive that revelation. And that's what Angie and John have both been talking about today, is being able to receive what it is you need to experience about you, the truth, not the programming and the conditioning and the problems you need to solve. All that leads to an identity that is incongruent with your desired end results. So they want to have you to where all parts of you are pulling together for your success, not pulling you apart. And that's what they're offering you today. So my tip, tool, and technique is, besides asking yourself better questions for better answers, for better results, is what symbolism are you using in your mind? And do you have the power over something? And then it's easier for you to step down into what you want to experience instead of clawing your way to the top. Okay, so one more time, Angie, what is your contact information? And if they're going to contact you, What are they going to get? What are they
Yeah.
going to receive when they reach out to you? How do you want to connect with them?
I'd like for them to go to harmonyharbor.com, my website, and they can get I've got a freebie out there. It's called Self-Care for Women Going Through Difficult Life Transitions. And I also have a free event coming up on October 4th for women going through these difficult life transitions like divorce and loss. And so they can see that under the events tab.
Okay.
Again, it's Angie at harmonyharbor.com, and it's 1-314-422-6520.
Okay. John, what are they going to get when they reach out to you?
So when you reach out to me, you're going to get a free consultation that I promise results from. It's amazing when you can have a conversation. It's not going to cost anything but time. Oh my gosh, look at that, right? But that time will be rewarded with results that you're seeking. So again, shihanwellness@gmail.com, SHIHAN wellness@gmail.com, or you may call me 314-1314. Excuse me, I'll start again. 1-314-616-4091. And I look forward to chatting with you.
And I'm going to share, if you want a Fall into Success consult with me, go to canhypnosishelpyou.com and you'll have a button where you can sign up for it. Or you can go to my main website and get a free hypnosis audio of Falling into Success. Dawn, DAWN, Landrum, LANDRUM.com. All right. So we're going to wrap up here, and Angie and John don't go anyplace. So this is what I want our audience to leave with. Both Angie and John are here to help you with that revelation knowledge, whether it's having the saboteur now begin to switch sides and begin working for your success, or those challenges actually bring out the peaks that you already possess. You just need to realize and receive your brilliance. They're both here to support you in that. Please reach out to them, because right now the world is a pretty dark place. It needs your light more than ever. And they are here to show you how to turn on your brilliance. So not only it can work for you, but your brilliance can be a blessing for the world. Okay, until we get together again. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Dawn.